Of course, the big story of the day is the release of a redacted version of the Mueller report. The report, 440 pages long, and is broken into two sections. One covering the investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election. The second part examines possible obstruction of justice by President Donald Trump. Joining us now is David Weinstein, a former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida. And David, here it is, all 448 pages of it. What's your takeaway from it?
There was a lot to read there. And quite frankly, before I wanted to make any comments about it, I wanted to read the whole thing. And so I did. It's a very thorough report by someone who was given a task and embraced that task and carried it out in a way that I would hope every prosecutor would. He gathered all the evidence he needed to gather, interviewed all the witnesses he could, and got answers from everybody who was willing to answer questions that were given to him, and then he applied the law. And for those people who he could prove were involved in a conspiracy, he presented indictments to the grand jury and charges were brought. For those who he didn't have enough evidence, he didn't bring those charges. And that's as it relates to the Russia conspiracy. As to the obstruction, what bothered me the most about what I read in there was the conduct of the president and of the people who surrounded him. There are good people who surround him and who gave him good advice and prevented him from going in a direction that he was not going to recover from. But it's the conduct that's most troubling. And when you read through it, the conclusion that Mueller reached was not that he exonerated him for his conduct, but rather he couldn't bring himself to bring those charges, and he passed that off to other people who might still be able to do that. If Congress wants to start articles of impeachment based on what they've read in that report, then it's up to them to do that. Nixon wasn't indicted, Andrew Jackson wasn't indicted. Those are presidents who were brought before our legislature and who articles of impeachment were initiated. So if people want to address the misconduct, those are the people who should be doing it.
But wasn't his task, Special Counsel Robert Mueller's task, also to make a determination rather than punting it down the line? Or was he doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing?
He was given a task to investigate the interaction between the Russians and what that did to the election that took place. In addition to that, he was asked to look at any other peripheral activity, whether people lied to him or lied to other people in the course of the investigation, and then also this conduct, whether or not it constituted obstruction of justice. And obstruction of justice, while an act may constitute, as he pointed out, obstruction of justice, there's certain defenses to that, and then taken in the context as a whole, you have to consider whether it's appropriate to bring criminal charges based on that conduct. And he didn't say that he was prohibited from investigating a sitting president or from bringing those charges, but rather he wasn't comfortable in doing that. And it was a decision that he didn't have to make, and so he's passed that decision on to others who are more comfortable making that decision.
Well, there were, I believe, 10 instances there where people are saying that could have constituted obstruction of justice. I want to ask you about the Attorney General, because I watched his news conference this morning at 9:30, and then later, as we got the report, we read the report, we were able to digest it. It was a totally different picture than the one we were given from that news conference by Attorney General William Barr.
He presented the same thing that he said in his 4-page letter. If you look at the 4-page letter and you listen to what he said this morning at 9:30, there was nothing different about that. That's his opinion, and that's a position that he took. And I don't think we could have expected him to take a different opinion given the earlier unsolicited letter that he wrote with regard to what was going on. He's taken his opinion, and he continues to take his opinion. For the rest of us, if you want to form your own opinion, read the whole report. That's what will cause you to reach a different conclusion.
Yeah, maybe set aside some time if you're going to read the report. And David, you're going to be with us at 7 o'clock too, because we're just scratching the surface here. Thank you very much for your analysis.
I'll see you then.